Greetings, everyone. Happy Easter, happy Tax Day Eve to you Americans out there, and welcome to SpaceWeek Live, episode 115 for this Sunday, April 17th, 2022. So I am back from the beach and a family vacation, which is why there was no SpaceWeek last week. Apologies for that, but we had a pretty good time. Didn't get too terribly toasted, and got to lounge around in the Gulf of Mexico without getting pummeled too badly by the waves. The Atlantic surf tends to be a little more aggressive than the Gulf surf. So, also, last time we were down there in Clearwater Beach 3 years ago, the beaches were covered with sargassum, or seaweed. This time they were nice and clear, and we had a grand old time. So, as always, SpaceWeek is a live Q&A session, so if you have any questions for me, Rawspace, please put them in the chat. Just make sure to tag my name with an @ sign or just type Rawspace so that we see the questions and can collate them. So, let's see. Looking back a couple of weeks, 2 Wednesdays ago, on April 6th, a Long March 4C launched the third Gaofen 3 environmental monitoring satellite from Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center in northwest China. Maybe no sound for that one. And again, the white rectangles that you see falling off the rocket are not chunks of ice. They are insulation panels that are intended to keep the payload warm and toasty in the variable Chinese atmosphere out there in the middle of the desert. Let's see. That Friday, SpaceX launched Axiom Mission 1, or AX-1, the first all-private human spaceflight mission to the ISS.
15 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition. Stop. Go Falcon, go Dragon. Godspeed, Axiom 1.
Copy 1 Alpha. Neutral position downrange.
Together, a new chapter begins. Godspeed, AX-1.
Stage 1 propulsion is nominal.
It was a beautiful launch and a beautiful landing, which we will see here.
All right, we got a live view of the crew inside Dragon Endeavour there on the right-hand side of your screen.
Stage 1 landing burn.
Landing burn has begun for the first stage.
SpaceX, nominal orbit insertion.
All right, great news there. Dragon Endeavour, nominal orbit insertion.
SpaceX Endeavour, we copy, and it's great to be here. 0G, and we feel fine.
Stage 1 landing leg deploy. SpaceX Dragon launch skip system disarm.
As you can see, this Falcon 9...
I'm not sure what was up with the sort of pix-in-pix rectangle in the middle of the right-hand screen. Maybe that was just a glitch. But, yep, so on board, the Axiom 1 crew consists of retired astronaut Michael Lopez Alegria, Larry Connor, Mark Pathy, and Israeli Eitan Stibbe. They docked to the ISS about 7.5 hours after launch. And they will spend a total of 10 days in space doing educational outreach and conducting scientific experiments. There they are. Woo! Shaky cam. Oh my goodness. All right. So moving ahead to the past week, on Thursday, NASA planned to conduct a wet dress rehearsal of the SLS rocket, when they spotted a liquid hydrogen leak on the tail service mast umbilical, which provides fuel and electrical connections from the mobile launch tower to the base of the rocket. They did manage to successfully chill down the lines used to load propellant into the interim cryogenic propulsion stage, but they did not flow any propellant to the stage due to a faulty helium check valve that was identified a few days earlier. Helium isn't used for fuel on the SLS, but rather it's used to provide gas pressure for purging the engines and draining propellant. SLS will be moved back to the vehicle assembly building for repairs before NASA can roll it back out again to hopefully complete a successful wet dress rehearsal. And it's not yet determined as to what potential impact these delays may have on the first Artemis 1 mission, which will be an uncrewed mission, a test mission around the moon. But stay tuned for updates on the Artemis 1 launch date. Then, last Friday, a Long March 3B launched the Zhongxing 6D communications satellite from Xichang in southwest China. Let me just pause that so you can check out the thrust pattern on that. It looks very reminiscent of a Soyuz thrust pattern. Then yesterday, the Shenzhou 13 Crew spacecraft undocked from the Chinese space station with taikonauts Zhai Zhigan, Yi Guangfu, and Wang Yaping on board. They spent 182 days on the CSS, having launched back on October 15th, 2021. They landed in the inner... And here's the egress. I'm not sure what that left flag said. I don't read Chinese, but which has been continuously crewed for more than 20 years now. The CSS is left uncrewed in between missions, at least for now. Finally, just a few hours ago, SpaceX launched the NROL-85 spy satellite for the National Reconnaissance Office from Vandenberg Space Force Base in California.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition. Lift off the Falcon 9. Go NROL 85.
SpaceWeek downrange. Stage 1, chamber pressure is nominal.
So, it has become more the norm than the exception in launches from Vandenberg that they bring the first stage booster back down for a land landing at the landing pad, as opposed to a drone ship landing out on, of course, I Still Love You. I think that's the drone ship that's still out in California, or currently out in California. But
Falcon 9 decreasing thrust to prepare for max Q, the highest amount of aerodynamic pressure.
But for some reason, their Florida launches, the pad landings are very infrequent. They've only done a few of them. And I don't know if that is because of... I mean, basically, it takes the basic limitation of whether or not you can do or you want to attempt a pad landing as opposed to a drone ship landing is that it takes more fuel. It takes a lot of fuel to conduct the boost back burn, which is about a 40-second burn to basically turn the rocket around so that it can come back to the landing pad, as opposed to letting it arc out ballistically and only needing to do the landing burn. But as far as whether or not that extra fuel is needed, that depends on what they're launching and into what trajectory or orbital shell they're launching it into. So heavier payloads that require more fuel, having to do adjustments during the deployment process. Let's say they're doing a rideshare mission where they have lots of different satellites. That requires additional fuel. Yeah. So, in any case, we did get to see a pad landing this time, so here we go.
Flight termination system on the first stage has now been saved. Landing burn coming up in about 10 seconds.
Stage 1 is transonic. Stage 2, FTS is saved. Stage 1, landing burn.
We've got landing burn. You see the grid fins beginning to operate. Waiting to come through the cloud deck for a view of landing zone 4 at the old Slick 4 West at Vandenberg.
Stage 2 is in terminal guidance. Landing leg
View from the ground camera, landing legs deploying.
Stage 1 landing confirmed.
Now, I do want to take a moment and correct what I just said regarding the multiple satellite deployments. That wouldn't affect the first stage fuel requirements beyond the extent to which it increased the mass of the payload. Obviously, the on-orbit adjustments that are performed by the upper stage in order to deploy multiple satellites would only affect the upper stage, not the first stage. So I wanted to clarify that in case somebody wanted to call me out on it. But, all right. So, let's see. Now, rolling back the clock way back to space history, last Monday marked the 52nd anniversary of the launch of Apollo 13 on April 11th, 1970. The mission was supposed to carry astronauts James Lovell, Jack Swigert, and Fred Hayes to the moon, but of course it was interrupted by an oxygen tank explosion 2 days into the mission. Instead, they looped around the moon, dealt with rising CO2 levels in the lunar module, which the crew was using as a lifeboat, and returned to Earth to splash down in the South Pacific on April 17th, 52 years ago today. April 12th marked the anniversaries of two historic events. 61 years ago, in 1961, cosmonaut Yuri Gagarin became the first person in space, completing one orbit of Earth in his Vostok 1 capsule. And 41 years ago, in 1981, Space Shuttle Columbia flew for the first time, with astronauts John Young and Robert Crippen aboard. The STS-1 mission lasted for 2 days and 36 orbits. Yesterday, April 16th, marks 50 years since the launch of Apollo 16 in 1972. Astronauts John Young, again, also the STS-1 pilot, Ken Mattingly, and Charles Duke rode their Saturn V on the second-to-last moon mission. They landed in the plain of Descartes on April 21st, stayed for 3 days, doing 3 EVAs for a total of 20 hours 14 minutes, and collected 96 kilograms, or 211 pounds, of moon rocks. They splashed down in the South Pacific on April 27th. Moving ahead to this week, let's see. I'll go ahead and put a link to the calendar in the chat. The raw space calendar I keep updated to within about a week or so of any upcoming space events or live streams of note. So a helpful tip regarding the raw space calendar: if an event has a little TV icon next to it, that means I will provide a live stream here on Raw Space. If an event doesn't have a TV icon, then I won't have a live stream. Some of the minor events leading up to the Crew-4 launch this week will have live coverage on NASA TV, but I won't be covering them here except maybe as a highlight video. So wherever you see an event with no TV icon, it may be viewable elsewhere, but not here. So tomorrow, Monday, April 18th at 10 a.m. Eastern, 1400 UTC, Russian ISS spacewalk number 52 is going to happen with cosmonauts Oleg Artemyev and Denis Matveev. From the time they open the airlock hatch, the spacewalk will last about 6.5 hours. As always, you can catch the spacewalk live here on Raw Space. Also on Monday, at 12:30 p.m. Eastern, 16:30 UTC, the SpaceX Crew-4 crew arrives at Kennedy Space Center. Tuesday morning, April 19th, at 6:30 a.m. Eastern, 10:30 UTC, will be a virtual news conference with the Crew-4 crew. Also on Tuesday, starting at 7 a.m. Eastern, 11 UTC, the Axiom 1 crew departs the ISS and returns to Earth. Live stream will be here on Raw Space, courtesy of both NASA and SpaceX. Probably split into 2 streams, one for the undocking, one for the splashdown. Undocking is scheduled for 10:35 a.m. Eastern, 14:35 UTC, with live coverage ending after the Crew Dragon spacecraft exits the approach ellipsoid of the space station. Splashdown happens around 17 hours later, on Wednesday, April 20th at 7:19 a.m. Eastern, 11:19 UTC. Live coverage will start a few hours before splashdown. The exact time is to be determined, because that'll be coming straight from... I'll provide a stream for you here on Raw Space, but the coverage will be provided from SpaceX, because Axiom-1 is not a NASA mission, so they're not providing coverage of the splashdown. Thursday, April 21st at 11:15 a.m. Eastern, 15:15 UTC, SpaceX launches Starlink 414 from Cape Canaveral with a drone ship landing. Then later that day, later that day at 9:30 p.m. Eastern, 01:15 UTC, is the SpaceX Crew-4 pre-launch news conference. A lot of Crew-4 events leading up to the launch. And finally, on Friday, April 22nd at 10 a.m. Eastern, 1400 UTC, is NASA Administrator Bill Nelson's briefing on the Crew-4 launch. And it's not entirely clear whether he is the briefer or the one being briefed. He's probably the briefer. Later on Friday at 6:35 p.m. Eastern, and this is potentially a significant one. Later on Friday at 6:35 p.m. Eastern, 22:35 UTC, an Electron rocket will launch a commercial rideshare mission called There and Back Again. A Rocket's Tale by, I don't know, Kiwi Baggins. On board will be 34 payloads from Alba Orbital, Asterix Astronautics, Aurora Propulsion Technologies, eSpace, Unseen Labs, and Swarm Technologies. And what is most significant about this launch, for the first time ever, Rocket Lab is going to attempt a mid-air catch of Electron's first stage booster using a Sikorsky S-92 helicopter. Now, Electron boosters have splashed down before with the helicopter hovering nearby, but this time the helicopter will actually try to snag the parachute line with a hook. The booster will be brought back to land, where Rocket Lab will assess its condition for reuse in a future launch. Finally, on Saturday, April 23rd, starting at the wee hour of 1:45 a.m. Eastern, 05:45 UTC, is coverage of the launch of the SpaceX Crew-4 mission to the space station. NASA astronauts Kjell Lindgren, Robert Hines, and Jessica Watkins, and ESA astronaut Samantha Cristoforetti will ride Crew Dragon Freedom on its maiden voyage. Freedom is the fourth and final Crew Dragon vehicle SpaceX plans to build. Freedom, together with its siblings Endeavour, Resilience, and Endurance, are sufficient for SpaceX's NASA and commercial crew launch needs. That is, until Starship gets going. Live coverage of Crew-4 will be continuous from about T-minus 3.5 hours all the way until docking. Launch is at 5:26 a.m. Eastern, 09:26 UTC. Docking is almost 25 hours later, on Sunday, April 24th, starting at 6 a.m. Eastern, 10 UTC. As with most expedition crews, these 4 astronauts will stay on station for about 6 months. And that is actually it for the coming week. It's going to be a busy one. I want to take a moment to thank our channel members and supporters who help make this whole thing possible. And now it is time for your questions. Let's see what you got. I know. Intrepid Chris V has been trying to automate the question collation process, and let's see. Did it work? Has it been working? Okay. I see a few questions. All right. Real Sven Animated. What engines does the Super Heavy and Starship use? Both Starship and Super Heavy use the Raptor engine. Starship is the upper stage of Starship is the overall vehicle, but Starship is also the upper stage. The name is reused, which makes it a little confusing, but I think we can handle it as intelligent space enthusiasts. In any case, Starship uses 3 Raptor engines, and these will be I presume these will be the Raptor vacuum-optimized engines, because Starship is the upper stage. Super Heavy will use, 27 Raptor engines, sea-level optimized engines. A huge number in any case. I think it's 27 engines, and so yes. Now these are going to be the Raptor 2s, because they are a major redesign from the original Raptor 1, which we've been watching the development of for the past few years, but and greatly simplified, but still a full flow staged combustion methane fueled engine. Mark Desire, looks like a fantastic vacation, Raw Space. Yeah, we had a good time. I mean, so the drive down there in trusty Tesla Model 3 took longer than it would have in a gas car, because you've got to do supercharging stops along the way, which is no big deal, but it does draw things out a little bit. So, it's a lifestyle choice. So you gotta live with the extra charge time. But we got down there, spent a day traveling down, and then a day traveling up. Spent 3 days visiting with my mom, because it had been a long time since we spent any substantial time with her. And during those 3 days, we all went to Busch Gardens, the amusement park down there in Tampa, which was a lot of fun. Exhausting, but fun. And rode some coasters. My elder daughter rode it's a cheetah chase or something like that. Anyway, it's a magnetically propelled, magnetically launched. It's basically a railgun roller coaster. Instead of ka-chunk, 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 carrying you up to the top of a very tall 300-foot hill and then dropping you in order to achieve momentum, they accelerate the coaster with magnets, like a railgun. And I was going to ride with her on it, but I didn't quite fit in the harness, so whoopsie. Not much that can be done about that. I mean, I kind of fit in it, but it was a tight fit, and I didn't feel comfortable because I couldn't really get a breath. Like, my chest was being compressed, and I was afraid that I would panic because I couldn't get a breath, and I knew it was an intense ride, and it wasn't just a 30-second thing. It was like a 3.5-minute ride. So so I went ahead and stepped off and let her go ahead, which was scary for her, but she pulled through, and I was very proud of her. But all right, SMW381st said, "Wow, Raw, your face looks like it is sunburned. Ouch." Oh, it's not really. I may look a little bit pink, but pinker than usual. But none of us had any kind of painful sunburn. So we made sure to grease up copiously with sunscreen, as is the wise thing to do if you don't want skin cancer. Let's see. Mark Desire kind of forgot what the Axiom 1 crew was doing on the ISS. So I haven't been following it play by play, especially since I was gone for a week. But oh, all right. So yeah, especially since I was gone for a week. But they've been doing educational outreach, so that is talking to, like, one of the, if if you watch very much NASA TV, you'll know that they do a lot of live broadcasts from the space station to schools all over the country. And so Axiom 1 was doing that sort of thing. So they were doing live conferences and broadcasts, Q&A and so on with schools and such. But they were also conducting a variety of scientific experiments while on station. I don't know what, and I didn't see anywhere that it was sort of publicly posted what experiments they're doing, but yeah, so they've been keeping busy these past few days. Real Sven animated the camera is shaking. I'm not sure if he may have been referring to the camera on the ISS when Axiom 1 arrived that was shaking around, or he could have been referring to my camera, because I do jiggle my legs, and my camera was maybe wobbling a little bit because it's mounted to the top of my monitor. I suppose I could, like, I don't know, either put it on a gimbal system or mount it to the wall or something to mitigate that. But Julian Roberts, Raw Space. Will the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency review all JWT pictures before releasing them into the public domain? I don't think so. I think that to the extent that all right, so similar to other data generating satellites, I think that there will be essentially raw access to the JWT information for people who have the skills, the knowledge, and the tools to process it. But James Webb Space Telescope, it doesn't download, or it doesn't upload JPEGs, to a NASA server somewhere. I mean, it's like raw data. And so it kind of has to be processed before it can be consumed by lay people such as you and I. Similarly, even like goes east, goes west satellite images, the data that's received by satellite systems from those satellites is in a raw form that has to be processed by somebody, whether it's processed by NASA or by a third party, it still has to be processed. But I don't think they're going to withhold any data until it's quote unquote sanitized so that it can be released. But yeah, there you go. I mean, and you or I with our backyard satellite dishes are not going to be able to, are very likely not going to be able to do anything with James Webb data. We very likely don't have consumer grade dishes that are sensitive enough to receive the signals. Additionally, we don't have the software to decode it and to process it. But as for the lag time, like how long can we expect it to take from the time data is received to the time we actually see something as members of the general public, that will depend, on the level of processing that's done to it, the degree of an analysis that's done to the data, and but I assure you that they are going to be working very hard on processing and analyzing what comes down, because it's a huge deal. I mean, it's the biggest space telescope we have up there. So, Tig, any news on Antares and the moon mission? So Antares, are those two separate things? Antares being Northrop Grumman's rocket with the Russian engines, and Artemis being the moon mission. I presume you meant those to be separate things. I don't have any more information on Antares. I haven't seen, like, I don't trawl, certainly don't troll, but I also don't trawl the Reddit subreddits for, for Northrop Grumman or for whatever. They have subreddits for everything, but I just don't have the time to linger, in those forums to see what people are saying about where does Antares go from here, or are there going to be more delays with Artemis? I mean, I only see what gets publicly announced by NASA, and NASA by its very nature is sort of a let's wait and see. We're not going to tell you anything for sure until we know for sure kind of organization. So that's pretty much that. All right. Mark Desire, by the way, a colorful shirt, raw space. Yeah, this is actually a genuine Hawaiian shirt made in Hawaii by Chinese slave labor. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, this is a Hawaiian shirt that I bought in Clearwater Beach because I didn't have one. I don't usually wear button-down shirts, but I figured I'd get one for the occasion, and it's really comfortable, actually. I wore it at the beach on our last day. So, yeah. All right. Looking for more questions. So, possible corrections from Starkover or Starcover, whichever pronunciation is correct. They're saying 33 engines on Super Heavy and 6 on Starship. So, and Chris V is saying 31. So, suffice it to say, there's a lot of darn engines, a lot of darn Raptors on Super Heavy, and either 3 or 6 on Starship. I thought that they had reduced it from 6 down to 3, but again, I don't get too caught up in the details. I don't want to be perceived as being ignorant of rockets, but I mean, whether it has 27 engines, 31, 33, or 40 doesn't really matter to me, so long as it is able to launch what it's supposed to launch, and get up there, successfully and then back again in one piece. So hopefully Starship development, hopefully we see our first orbital flight here pretty soon, because we've been waiting for a long time for it. And we haven't heard much about I mean, they've been lifting it and testing their their new beautiful Starship lifting mechanism, but we haven't had any launches in quite some time, and 0 orbital launches. All right. Okay, so I think that will wrap it up for this week. Let me take off that. All right. I think that'll wrap it up for this week. Thank you all so much for coming, and I bid you a fond farewell. Keep it raw, and I'll see you in the next live stream. Bye for now.